Hi there, welcome to the More Sibyl podcast. This is a podcast for Blacks, Asians, and those who love them. I am Mo, and I am your host, ready to spark your curiosity as I take you on this adventurous ride of exploring cultures through the stories of my guests from all over the world. On this show, we get really personal, discussing salient issues that are relevant to our contemporary age and also building community around them. As our guests exercise courage and vulnerability in sharing their life's experiences, we hope that in turn you are inspired by them and that you get the courage needed to set your own stories free. Enjoy the ride, and thank you so much for listening. Welcome back, everybody. This is Mo and
Ayomide.
And welcome to the More Sibyl podcast. As we do on the show, we're going to just have, well, not as we actually, but I think having a co-host, one of the beautiful things about it is that you can just jump on any conversation and just have fun naturally. We have no script for today, as usual, but what we plan to talk about really would be strength and when to use your strength and being comfortable with your strength. So, but first, let me check in with you, Emily. What has been the highlight of your week so far?
Ooh, that's a question I wasn't ready for. You should have told me this before we started recording.
It wouldn't be a podcast.
All right. What's been the highlight of my week? Okay, this is silly, but it's and I shared it with you actually. It's that silly screen, that silly image of the cheese remix of the Eurythmics song.
Made of these.
It was a silly thing, but it made me very happy.
Especially when you're singing and then dish, 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 dish.
Yep.
For those who are not familiar with this, I mean,
we should put it in the show notes.
We should definitely do that. He takes like screenshots of stuff and sends to me, and then we just have a beautiful time laughing at it. Sweet Dreams, Eurythmics. Someone had made a meme about cheese and using cheese, disagree like we
Sweet
breathe.
dreams are made of cheese.
and for every line,
it was hilarious.
Was that? I'm not a Star Wars star. Was that Picard? Like on the?
Yes, I think it was.
Again,
it's Star Trek. Yeah.
See, I'm not.
You're definitely not. The fact that you know me.
Yeah.
Which Star thing it was.
Yeah. So it's Sweet Dreams are made of cheese. Who am I to disagree? I shatter the world and feather cheese. Everybody's looking for Stilton. Some of them want to chew you, and it was Chewbacca.
And then the last line was like the killer for me.
Yeah, some of them want to be fondue.
Like that's how to go out with a bang.
It's funny how, speaking of which, I have some people on Instagram where if I really need a quick, pick me up or a quick laugh, I just go to their pages and they never, hesitate to make me feel like, oh, okay, the world is still a better place. So yeah, that was your highlight, right? My highlight.
Well, the other highlight was a friend of mine got a job that they've been very nervous about.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was really good. That made me really, really excited because it was like, so this was someone who was, had wanted to get a similar job and then not gotten it for a very silly reason that I won't go into.
Okay.
It's a very silly reason that had nothing to do with them, but like to do with the employer. And so this was like, just like, like getting what you deserve, but like in
a good way.
That almost felt like was not going to be happening.
So
that was
congrats
really cool.
to them. Congrats to your friend. My highlight of the week was, what day was that? A friend had reached out to me on WhatsApp and she told me, hey, I'm sick. I'm currently in the hospital. I'm scheduled for surgery the next day. And she's in the US. I'm not going to mention what state she's in. Of course, default, you check in on them and see how they were doing. But then I don't know what prompted me to ask her, because I know she stays by herself. And we've talked about just being isolated which has been compounded by, the pandemic and all that. So there were 3 layers of isolation for her. She's very introverted. 1, 2 is she's a foreign student, in the US, which, has, we're not even going to go into
The
that
whole
now.
thing.
Exactly. And then the third being, she works from home and, we're still in the pandemic and all that. So I just asked her like, hey, is there anybody with you? And she goes, no. I'm like, so that didn't sit well with me because I have gone through surgery here, and I'll let you know that even with the family and people that come to support you, it's still sometimes very isolating navigating the system and, just...
I mean, it's like a time of vulnerability already. So
exactly. And the fact that you had to take
support around
you had to take a cab to the ER. So
that sucks.
And I know so I tend to have a lot of friends who are more introvertish, and I always want to be sure that I'm being respectful of their boundaries, because I'm someone that sometimes I like to share, but I don't want to invade in people's privacy. So I just asked her, hey, is it okay for me to find you somebody that would entail me putting a little bit about it on my social media page, but I'm not going to mention your name. I'm just going to say somebody needs help, and whoever reaches out to me, I'm at liberty to give them your number. And then and that started. And Ayomide, I think I've shared this with you. It was so beautiful. I put it on my WhatsApp, I put it on my Facebook. Before I knew it, somebody knew somebody. We found out about 2 doctors, actually 1, who works in that same hospital and was on call and went to go see her. Another friend reached out to somebody else who went all the way and just stood there until she came out of surgery. She missed her, before she got into surgery, but she's going to wait wait outside so that when she's pulled out, there's somebody there for her to say, hey, my name is this person and I'm here for you. We found a pastor. People were just coming up, I know somebody. And that kind of made me really feel good. Not because, I put it out there, but the response. And she felt so loved. Now she's back home. She's had people cooking, meals for her, encouraging her to ambulate. So that's the power of just putting yourself out there. I admonish her for, at least coming out of that comfort zone. And even more so for me, because, and I think we can talk about them. Sorry, not admonish. I commend her. Jeez.
Yeah, I was like,
I commend her. No, I commend her for coming out of her bubble. It was a little bit uncomfortable for me to put it out there because something's happened last year that made me start asking myself 2 questions. Anytime I want to put a request on behalf of someone, how much of this is reeking too much of me? And is this something this other person would want you to do? Those are 2 questions I always have to ask myself. And I think they are boundary questions because I've not always used my power, And when I say power, I'm a connector. That's one of my superpowers. I've not always used it well. Not because I'm trying to weaponize it to do bad things. It's just levels of maturity and growth. So that made me happy. She's better now, and I'm helping her find community because I'm big on community. So long-winded way to talk about my highlights for the week.
But also, I commend you for, and I think it ties into what we're going to talk about today anyway. Sorry?
Are you admonishing or commending? We're just kidding.
No, just commending. But I commend you for and I suppose, I was about to say this ties into what we're talking about today, which is strengths.
Yeah.
And how, how we use them to, how we protect people from, not knowing our own strength. And so how we protect people from our own strengths, from the, the excesses of our strengths. But I commend you for going out on a limb to help her, in the way you did. Even though it was also something that for you was like, is this something I should be doing? You could have easily held back and been like,
I'll just pray for you.
Well, no, but exactly. Or being like, this is too risky. So I don't want to take a chance, and I just would hold back. You could have easily done that, and you didn't.
Yeah. So I think let me just put it out there. So let me tell you the scenario that kind of made me pause and to show ways that I'm trying to grow, to learn more about myself and using my powers very well. I think what really started it for me was sometime when I was in grad school. I'm not going to mention that particular year because I don't want to link into something else. We had this potluck for Thanksgiving dinner with some of my friends, and we all got together. And in asking about one other friend, nobody had heard from them in a while. And this person wasn't really close to me, but we're all in, you know when you have like a large circle of friends and you're all getting together, and it's unlike this person not to have shown up. It's unlike this person not to have responded to a phone call. And the more I was asking around, like, it became more of like, something is going on here. I'm not close to this person, but I'm hearing the same thing from different people. And the more I'm asking questions, the more it's like the alarm is escalating in my head. So I had to like, almost like, guys, can we just talk about this? This is really scary. Where is this person? And I think the host then was even a little bit pissed off because I invited them. They didn't even respond to me. You know, that kind of pissed off you are at a friend. Not like you're super angry, but just like, how dare you not respond to my, invitation? Well, Ayomide, guess what happened? They were dead.
What happened? The person was in trouble. Oh.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not see that coming.
I know, because we were smiling, right? And it still haunts me to today. There was nothing I could have done about it. I don't think there's anything we could have done about it. It was during the holiday period, and, people were maybe traveling to go see family. And sometimes this person would maybe go off, but he was never that kind of person not to, at least give an update. That's when I realized that this is not what you guys are talking about is not matching up with how you've described this person. And I ended up being like the detective, and cut the long story short, he died. Whether it was suicide or just, accidental suicide, but he died. And so I'm part of a WhatsApp group for another group of people, which I'm not going to mention. And someone had reached out to me saying, I'm not able to get in touch with my friend because they haven't been communicating. I have tried calling, which was a red flag. So I raised the alarm because it's almost like, oh my gosh, is this happening again? Like, where you go into deja vu mode. But the way I went about it, I think I was trying to just say this was going to be the same as that other situation. And there was some blowback, which kind of made me retreat because I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm just too much. Maybe I'm just going about this the wrong way. But I've realized that you can't keep hiding your light. You can't keep diminishing your strength. You should learn how to use it. But there's just the power in just letting it shine. Because what comes to you so effortlessly might be something somebody's trying to get, and we're saying that you can still grow from it. So anyways, that's, I think that was that example. So those two questions I always have to ask myself, because I do have that tendency to be, and I think we've talked about this, to be overbearing and be too much. Like, you see something like this is all about more, and it's not my intention to always be that way, but it's one of the blowbacks of my strengths where I can be too much. So I have to ask myself, what part of this risks too much of me? And is this something that what I'm doing right now, is it going to honor that person that I'm trying to help? What are you doing? I feel like
just because it's heavy. It's heavy. I was not expecting. Yeah, I was not expecting like it would go like that deep.
I know. And he died just behind his apartment, and it's still sad to me because and I'm sure his friends, they probably beat themselves over it for a long time because nobody knew that was what was happening to him, And it took a while to find him. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That is...
How come we don't have words? Which is unlike you.
Because
I'm really afraid right now.
Yeah, because... Yeah, I've definitely never had anything that intense.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I suppose. Because I can imagine how difficult that would be. But yeah, I definitely relate with the whole challenge of of knowing that. Well, I mean, okay, so like I like to think of strength as, if you think of strength, I like to think of it through the metaphor of like superpowers. Well, mainly because I like superheroes, obviously.
You don't say.
Right? But not superpowers in the sense that they're powers that nobody has. Just superpowers in the sense that
they're super team. Yeah.
Well, no, they're just a useful metaphor for thinking about it, right? Which is what stories are. And the reason we tell stories about superheroes is because they're a great metaphor for talking about a lot of other things in general. And one of the tropes in every superhero story is the beginning bit when the superhero first learns about their powers, right? And they're trying to figure out how to use their powers. And they realize, like, they usually break things because they haven't figured out their powers yet, or they haven't grasped the amount of their powers yet, right? And so, let's say the person is strong, they might hold something and then just break it because they didn't realize just how strong they were. And so a lot of figuring out how to be a superhero is figuring out the importance of holding back, of knowing when to use your powers, knowing when to not use your powers. And if you want to be a hero versus a villain, knowing what using your powers for good is going to look like, and that will depend on your powers, right? And so for instance, if your power is fire or something to do with fire, right, it's easy to feel like, oh, I don't know what to use this for because it's a destructive power, but not really, because fire has a lot of valuable uses. So it's also figuring out where is this going to be useful. And thinking about that, I found very helpful. But it's also useful for thinking about the fact that your powers can harm just as easily as they can help, which is why villains exist. Which is why, because those are people who say, I want to use this power. Interestingly, not necessarily to harm, but to serve myself, like you said.
Self-serving.
And so ultimately, the difference is who do you want to use your powers for? For yourself, which ultimately is what it means to be a villain. Right? Because we often think about villains as people who use their powers to harm. But the core of it is that they are people who use their powers for their own self. And then that means other people don't matter as much. And harming other people is like, they're just collateral damage. Versus people who want to use their powers to serve other people and help other people. But then I think what you've described is like an example of, like, your two stories are like, one is like, so your first story makes me think of like Spider-Man's like origin story, right?
You had to go there.
I had to go there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Right? Because like Spider-Man loses Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
But he uses Uncle Ben because in his case, so obviously your experiences are quite different, because in your case it was like you were still sort of learning to trust that power. Whereas with Spider-Man, it was because he had decided to use the power to, he was trying to use power to make money. And then I think there was a guy who he could have helped. And if, he thought, yeah, whatever, I don't need to use my power to help this person, because it was basically someone who robbed someone else and was running away.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, everybody knows this bit. Or if you don't, it's
if
like,
you don't, it's too late already.
It's the beginning of the story. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Right? But like, he doesn't help this person that he should have helped. And the person, the thief that he doesn't stop because he doesn't care, ends up being the one who kills his uncle, who is like the most important adult in his life. One of the two most important anyway. And then he realizes, sort of like very viscerally, the thing he thought did not concern him ended up concerning him very, very much.
Yeah, big way, yeah.
And your story is a little different, but the point is, in both cases, there's tragedy, and in your case, obviously, the tragedy was not something you could have likely prevented, but it was just like a very strong sense of realizing, wow, this person that I was worried about my worry was valid, my concern was valid. And I suppose, that probably made you learn to trust that more. Like if I'm worried about someone and I feel like I need to check on them,
I should check on them.
I need to trust that.
Yes.
Just like with Spider-Man, it's like, okay, if I feel like there's someone I can help, I need to trust that sense and help, right? So it's sort of learning to trust your power, which is hard, I think, because in many ways, like you said, also, there was the pushback of like, oh, don't worry about it, it's fine, there's nothing, and there's always that pushback of people who you think know better, or who you think sometimes it's mentors, sometimes it's friends, it's people who you respect, and they're telling you, yeah, there's no need for your power here, and they've been right about other things. Are they right about this? And that's tricky.
Yeah. And I think one other point of, I guess, expansion would be knowing that even with powers, the commonality there is you. So sometimes you can be working against your power, like you might limit yourself. Yeah. But I think what really calmed me down was I talked to God about, like, okay, what would you want me to do? Should I do this? Should I do this? And when I felt like comfortable doing it because I thought it was the right thing to do, I just took it back to God. Like, no matter how uncomfortable I feel about putting it out there, this is a service to somebody. And there's no other way. Like, I thought about, like, what's the worst that can happen? She's already in a pickle by being alone, having surgery, no one to take her home and, help her move around. What if she falls down? She, something bad happens to her. Whatever you're doing is going to help the situation either way. So put that aside. But yeah, I think just always taking it back to God. I think that also helped me out. Like, it's not you really. It's a gift you've been given. So yeah, work around all of the kinks and the things that are limiting you. But I'm curious to know about you. Are there times you felt like you've limited yourself or had to like dim your light just to make others around you comfortable?
Yeah, I think that's something everybody has to deal with now. Like, it's just like part of what it means to live in the world is you're going to have to go through that phase of, because it's a tension, I think, because on one hand, you sort of get the sort of internet's advice about don't hold back, just be you, and it's like, I don't know, you need to hold back sometimes. Right? So the real trick is figuring out when to do what. Right? And I think that's a finer thing. And maybe that's, than simply don't hold back versus hold back. Like, it's not one or the other, it's both. And tension is sort of figuring out which is required when. And obviously that means some of it's going to be, you're going to have to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because that's partly how you're going to learn. And obviously you can learn from other people as well, but you're going to have to make mistakes. In terms of personal experiences, I don't know. There's a number. I'm trying to think of which one I can say that doesn't like out someone, in a sensitive way, because obviously a lot of these things involve other people, don't they? So, I want to be considerate about it. I suppose I can start with the fact of like when I was younger, I was very shy. I was known as a very shy kid.
Really?
Which is always surprising when I say that, I feel like you would know. Not you would know. Like when you knew me, so when we first met, I was just coming out of that shell.
I'm coming out. I want the world to know. Gotta let it show.
No, but seriously, I was just coming out of that shell.
Yes.
But yeah, so most of my pre-adulthood life was very sort of withheld, very reserved, very shy. Not trusting myself. I didn't even know. So then you could say I didn't know my powers were. Like, I genuinely didn't. There were things I found out when I sort of made the decision that I just got to like my adulthood. This was in uni, and I thought to myself, when I say I thought to myself, it wasn't a one day thing, but like over a period of time, I came to be convinced that I did not want to continue living like this anymore. Which is a whole other story, how I came to that point. But I just came to that point, and I realized I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew that there was more in terms of how I could engage and how I could exist socially. And I wanted to explore that. And then it was along the course of that I started to discover sort of what I could be, and the things that I was good at. And one of the things I discovered, which I did not know, was that I was very good at getting deep with people very quickly. Which is sort of like a weird thing to be good at. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it has its flips, it has its ups and downs. It's great for things like therapy. So, because it means you can form sort of like, you can get like into the nitty-gritty of things with people really quickly, which is helpful. It's tricky in personal relationships because it sometimes leads to this thing where like I don't know someone, and then within a short time of meeting them, they feel like they can tell me anything.
Yeah. So you've almost like you've worked a lot on that aspect of yourself.
I wouldn't say worked a lot. I mean, I have, but
you have had
I think
because
it's more that I discovered that it existed. So it wasn't like something I trained. It was just something that once I started to engage socially, I realized it was there. Okay. And I didn't realize it actually for a few years, which is something else I'm going to come to. I think we should talk about a bit more later, is the importance of relationships in this whole process.
Personal development, yeah.
Because I don't think personal development is not personal. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think Africans know that. That's why they say
it's very relational
as a child. Yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and the way you know your strengths in so many senses is through the relationships around you. Like the way I think about it now is that there are parts of you that you can't know yet. There are parts of you that you don't know yet because you haven't met some people yet.
Exactly. It's like even in relationships with people, like take for example, you have a boyfriend or so, not an abusive one, but maybe you get married and then things start popping up. People are asking, didn't you see that before you guys started dating? No. Because you wouldn't, except it's really beating you, then you know you shouldn't have entered that relationship. But you have to be in an environment to be able to see some things, blossom or die, It takes other people.
Yeah, I mean, for every one of us, I feel like one of my interesting questions, to ask people has always been like, what's your sort of weird interest? But a question I've been thinking, like, because this is sort of something I've been thinking about a lot recently. And one of the questions I want to, well, not when I meet them. So the weird interest question is a question I ask when I meet people. But a question I want to start asking more is, what have you discovered about yourself recently from someone you got to know? Because it's interesting how a lot of things about us, and sometimes it's, when I say discovered, it doesn't mean sometimes it's things that were there, but someone had to name it and tell you, do you know you're good at X?
Yeah.
And that's when you realize, oh, I am good at X. And that's not necessarily that you just became good at X, but it wasn't a thing. It wasn't on your radar as a thing to be aware of.
Yeah.
Or it was just something you took for granted or didn't even notice. And so sometimes it's people calling it out by naming it and saying, you're good at this thing. And then that then makes you become more intentional about it. Or sometimes it's people, because of how they engage with you, and then you realize, oh, when I'm around this person, I'm funny.
Yeah.
And then you now start to be funny around other people. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I'll say this, true story. You helped me craft that whole, I'm a community builder. Like, it was from your mouth that I heard it the first time. Like, man, you're so good at keeping in touch with people and community building. because I would just do it because, it was something I would do, but I didn't have a name for it. I wasn't thinking of labeling it. But when you called me out on it, I'm like, that's really true.
You said called you out on it like...
No, in a good way. No, in a good way. And then the whole, culture enthusiast, so you've helped me almost like operationally define things I would just normally do effortlessly. So thank you for that.
Yeah, but I mean, and you've done the same for me because ultimately, that's what I think that's a big part of friendships, of relationships, of it's a big thing that parents get to do for children, and they don't always do it, but it's amazing when they do, right? It's a big thing that friends get to do for friends or partners or just sometimes teachers, right? Anyone who's ever had a great teacher, one of the things that almost certainly happened in that relationship was that teacher called out something in you.
Yeah.
It wasn't just what they taught you, it was what they named or what they stimulated, right? So it's I think of it as it's either, people naming things and then sort of bringing that thing to life by naming it, like it becomes real, or stimulating something by something that was dormant, right? Like it's like a superpower that it was dormant, but around them it sort of came alive, and you realize, oh wait, I can do this.
Yeah, but won't you say that it would take vulnerability in your part, at least some part of vulnerability, because people can always see, I liken it to like a peephole, like a keyhole. Like they can see a little bit, but for them to be able to see more about you, you have to be willing to show a little bit more about you, even though you're not being intentional about it. But it comes from, you need that close proximity to others, right? Would you say?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. You're so right. Like you need to be with those people first. So, yeah, it's like you have to be in those relationships, and sometimes you don't choose that, right? Like with parents or with teachers.
Yeah.
You just happen to be in the school you're in, or you just happen to be born to the parent you're born to. With friends, then it's a bit more deliberate or intentional. And sometimes it's also you choosing to go to some places to learn something. So you're the one who chooses to be taught in X place or X setting. So yeah, definitely and then obviously also being the kind of person that they can say to definitely helps.
Yeah.
Because that definitely helps. It's because people may see that about you and not say it, which is a thing that happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And sometimes they say it, but you don't hear it.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, this is maybe like a jam question, but why do you think we're kind of giving just, I've seen myself be both things, like swing both ways in the sense of wanting to be close to people and wanting to be far away from people. Why do you think we retreat so much from being parts of communities, knowing just how, number one, the protective factors, you're only as strong as people you surround yourself with, and you're easily less attacked by whatever is coming your way once you found yourself in a communal setting? Why do you think we shy away from forging those communities and being intentional about it, forming them and also keeping them?
Oh, I mean, pain is definitely a one that comes quickly to mind.
Yeah.
We've probably all been hurt in some of those interactions,
and we've hurt others too.
Oh yeah, definitely. But
we don't remember that. We remember what was done to us, but not what we've done to others.
Yeah. But again, I think that's actually useful. Like remembering that I've hurt others as much as people have hurt me.
Yes.
It helps to sort of, I think it's not in a sense of feeling guilty about it, but in a sense of remembering that part of being human is that we hurt each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's unfortunate, but it's part of it. But it also means that we can help each other. But it takes a bit of, it took me my entire adulthood to come to that point. So it obviously can take time. Not my entire adulthood, sorry. It took me becoming an adult.
Wait, is this guy dying or something?
It took me my entire adult. It took me to become an adult before I sort of came to the point where I said, I'm going to reach out and connect with people. Which is the other thing is the willingness. One of the things that I think a lot about recently is, and you and I have talked about this, the fact that, there's that research that talks about, and maybe we could put that in the show notes. There's been these articles that came out in the NYT a couple of years ago about older men not having friendships. I don't know if you saw when it was going around, and it went around a bit, and of course there were a lot of think pieces and things. But there's something to it. But I've also been thinking about it a lot because, I formed some really good. I'm becoming one of those older men, but I've also formed some really good friendships, and also reignited some old friendships in the last few years. And so I remember, because I think about it because when I read that article, I remember thinking, I felt like I was on the path to becoming one of those men. But now, here I am a few years later, and I'm definitely not.
But you made an intention not to die alone.
Well, that.
Just kidding.
But it's, I also think about, because one of the verses that helped me when I first sort of came out of my shell in my early adulthood is the verse I've been thinking a lot about again recently. And it's where it says, he that would have friends must be friendly.
Yeah. Sounds like a Yoda. Like a baby Yoda. It sounds like a baby Yoda could have said it.
Yeah, exactly. Yoda. I can't do Yoda voice. I'm not going to try. I was about to try.
No, I can't even do it myself.
But it's, for me, what it means is, it's about making the shift from I want to have friends to I want to be a friend.
Yeah.
Right? And basically I'm realizing that the times in my life when I've made that shift from thinking, oh, I don't have friends, to thinking, who can I be, who wants to be my friend, to who can I be a friend to?
Yep.
Right? Flipping that question and thinking, who can I come around? And that's not in a forceful way. It's just connecting with people and holding the ones that hold back. Right? And again, that's vulnerability. It's putting myself out there. But then what happens is you end up having these sort of rich relationships around you, and these people who hold you more than you thought you were trying to hold them. So yeah, it's kind of been that journey again.
Yeah, so pain and
a different time in my life that I, sort of started all those years ago.
Yeah. So I like what you talk about pain, and also just coming to that point of realizing that to have friends, you have to be able to, be a good friend. And I think we don't always remember that. And I think it takes a lot of time. No, but I can't even tell you how much time and investment it takes in forging a community. You can find people, but to keep them going, and I know it's not something that is equitable to everybody, because maybe you don't have all the luxury of time. But even if it's just one or two people, I strongly believe we shouldn't do life alone. I strongly believe that you need to find your people. And so people say, oh, you just moved to Oklahoma, you already have this many people. Because in a way, it's a protective factor. Maybe I'm being selfish about gathering people. I just can't see a way of living life without doing it this way. And I've seen the benefits. Yes, have I been hurt? Yes. Many times. Have I hurt other people too? Of course, and those two things will keep happening. But that shouldn't still stop you from, venturing in. It takes vulnerability. It takes a lot of investment. It takes time. It takes a lot of, headspace and mind space and whatnot. But it's really worth it. That's what I'm just trying to say. It's really, really worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, something you said just also brought to mind, obviously for people who've been deeply hurt, in a traumatic sense, therapy is something that you should definitely consider, right? Because
hey, louder.
Because it's interesting. Both of us have been and are currently in therapy.
Yes. Well, one of us is a psychiatrist and one of us is not. So I must say this one out. Go for it, shrink.
But I was going to say therapy is something to definitely consider, because obviously there's the low level hurts that we will always hurt each other as humans. And then there's sort of deep, profound, wounds. It's like the difference between being grazed and bruised and being stabbed, right?
Yeah.
Just being relationships, you're going to get relational bruises, But every now and then, some of us will get relational stabs.
Or the piercings.
And yeah, bruises you can heal, you can treat at home. Stabs, you got to go to hospital. If you've been stabbed relationally, then that's not something you just try and, don't treat that at home. But then the important thing, the thing I'm also thinking about is that, and I don't know if people often think about this, but it's something you realize, like, especially for those of us who train to. So I'm currently in therapy, but also I also have clients that I'm seeing. And one of the things about therapy is that it's also about, it's a relationship. Mm-hmm. So in a way, if you think about it, if you've been hurt relationally, the way to heal
is to go back into a relationship.
Get into another relationship.
Yes, that's a good one, a healthy one.
Right? You and your therapist are in a relationship. It's a unique kind of special relationship for people that are hurting, but it's a relationship, right? It's a relationship where, and the thing about therapy is a relationship where it's not give and take. It's just give. Because you can't get that kind of relationship normally, where you're never asking how the therapist is doing, and you shouldn't. I mean, you might, and they might tell you a few things, but like, that's not the point, right? There's nothing from
judged.
their end. No, but that's the whole point of it. And I mean, that's what I do in my therapy too as well. I'm not asking my therapist how they do. I mean, I ask, but in a very basic sort of, and she's not meant to tell me anything deep.
Because who's paying for this session? Me, right?
Exactly. Right? Exactly. But also it's the point of that relationship that it's also meant to be a relationship model. Right? And this is something that is worth thinking about. That one of the things you learn in therapy is, one, it's a relationship that's safe and like a safe space, but it's also a place where you learn new skills about being in relationship that you can then take back to your other relationships.
Yeah.
So it's a relationship, but it's also a relationship. It's like a place to like learn new relationship skills or learn how to rethink relationships and then model that with the therapists so that you can take it back into your other relationships.
That's a very good way of talking about it. And I think I'll just end this by saying that what you said about you need to be in a relationship to be able to help you heal from the past one that hurt you. There's this saying of, if man break your heart now, man go heal him,
I've never heard that.
I have heard it.
I feel like you're making this up.
I'm not making it up. Maybe I kind of like, paraphrase it, but it goes like that. Like, man go break your heart, now man go heal you. So that's like for those that don't know, that's like a pidgin English. Like, if a man breaks your heart, it's the same, not the same man, but it's the same man as far as think of it, anthropological.
People will break your heart.
People will break your heart.
It's people who will break your heart. It's people
that will heal you as well.
It's people you get healing through.
So finally, wrapping up this session will be, so we're both immigrants to, developed countries that,
Experts, please. Thank you.
Sorry. Experts. They're highly, highly sought after experts, in a different country. And I don't know how the UK is as far as climate wise, but the US is not as socially cohesive as Nigeria. I don't think any places like Nigeria, where without even wanting it, you're already in the moment you're born, you're already in the community. And,
to be fair, I mean, a lot of the non-Western world is like that.
Exactly.
Which is the whole thing. Well, the non-Western world and also the historically non-Protestant Western world.
Eastern.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a whole other conversation. But there's something about Protestantism that is sort of like the thing. It's not just like the West. So if you look at like countries that were like Catholic or like Orthodox, they tend to be more communal. They may not be as communal as like non-Western countries, but they tend to be more communal than standard.
Yes.
Western
but anyways,
countries.
All that to say, for me, I've been through wilderness experience of just chronic loneliness, which, has further exacerbated my depression. And one of the ways I've had to counter it is just keep putting myself out there. Because just take, for example, when I just moved here, when you see an American, and I use that word vaguely because anybody can be an American, you meet them, you exchange names, and the next day you're like all smiles and they're looking at you like, Don't be a weirdo. And like, but we connected. I thought we had a connection yesterday, and now I'm coming on too strongly for you. And I always say this, that I found my people in people that are international people, not necessarily people that are from other countries, but people who can speak that language of belonging. And in fairness to even me talking about Americans in that general way, the Americans I'm really, really tight with are those that have this broader perspective of what community should be like. They're usually missionaries, or those who have hosted missionary kids, or they have a mission somewhere related to that, or people who just, are just very open in a very in a cultural way. So it's just keep putting yourself out there. You might not find your people, yes, but it's what's in your experience. So I'm curious to know for you, what has it been like for you adjusting to the UK and all of even though they are like our colonizers, so it's like you going back to the plantation, which I'm still beefing you for, by the way, but because you need to move to the US, that's my goal for you. That's until you move to the US, I will not quit, heaving on you, heavy. But anyways, what has it been like for you, being in the UK and just trying to make community happen for you? Because I know you do have your hermit ways as well.
I mean, I'm learning actually too, because obviously, like you said, coming here, I've not been as deliberate about community, I think, as a human being, like just growing up. But I've been more so coming here because I think one of the things I realized coming here was, actually, there was a lot that I took for granted growing up in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, obviously, I didn't feel the need to be deliberate. But then you come here and you
examples
realize,
of what you took for granted. We need to know that, because I want to be sure we're thinking about it in the same way.
Well, just little things like how people will reach out to you. Things like you see a stranger and you walk past a stranger and you just like not, like just you're like both of you are just standing, maybe like you're just standing in a queue waiting for something.
Yeah.
And then you start talking. Right, and that sort of thing, and for no other reason than that you're sharing that experience of standing in the queue is all you need to connect.
Or even seeing your neighbors, or your neighbor saying, it was raining, I packed your clothes for you.
Even too far. That's what I'm like saying, like
just standing in the queue. I see, like a stranger.
Your neighbors are like you actually live with them and you see them every other day.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So yeah, it's all those sorts of things, and there's actually research that shows that these little interactions actually help your mental health, because they take you out of yourself. They sort of interruptions into your day where you banter and you chat and you sort of let off some of your own emotional steam. And just enough of them over the course of a day does something for you. And when you see it that way, you begin to see why quarantining, for so many people was such a huge problem, because they lost all of that.
Yep.
Right? The world lost that as like a global sort of reality at the same time. And it was massively impacting on people. So yeah, I've become realizing that has meant going out of my way to connect with people and to seek friendships and to, like, even on a different level from what I did as in my young adulthood.
Yeah.
And yeah, really looking out for people and just the deliberateness.
Yeah. And that's so very key. That's so very key. And I think just bringing it home, what makes our friendship really, really good is the many ways we feed each other, like sending memes and knowing the other person's, what will make them really smile and happy. And I think those are some of the things tools you can use to invest in your friendship. Knowing your friends. Maybe there's a dessert shop they like, you'll be getting some stuff from them, sending them a random note, or it doesn't have to be very expensive. But I think the key word here is intentionality. And that's really what you need in building a community. Because there are people out there who really want to connect with you if you are able to also share your own cards. We hope that, in everything you're doing, you're seeking ways to be a part of a community. You're not living life alone. Remember just the impact it might have on your mental health and even on your health in general. And we hope this episode has really helped you to think more about also your strengths and your superpower and how you can use that for good and even grow through that process as well. I mean, I don't know if you had any other thoughts.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, I feel like we started talking about strengths and we end up talking about relationships.
It's because strengths, because you can't have one without the other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because your
But yeah, I
strengths
suppose
are
it's just, I would say what I said.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll say what I said again. Is that ultimately strengths are not simply personal. Your personal strengths are relational, right? You will discover your strengths through relationship. You will also find the opportunities to express them in relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you've been stabbed relationally, you will also need to get into relationship.
Now, Mango,
in this case, professionally with a therapist, to heal.
Well, there you have it. The dog has spoken. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like more of this, let us know. If there are other topics you'd like for us to explore on the podcast, let us know as well. On behalf of Ayomide and I want to say thank you for tuning in today and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Cheers, everyone.